This is a tutorial to talk about data layering and how we can possibly use it. I'm creating a new project called Test Data Layers using the blank template. And I'll pause for a sec here just to make sure um, not to waste any more time. All right, I'm in Test Data Layers with a couple of spawn points. We'll get rid of the spawn point. Uh, and I just need to add some layers here. So let's go to prefabs, Art Deco. Let's put in the jewelry store. Put them in here. And let's put in the theater. Ooh, hello, 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 hello. So there you go. You got two pretty good sized things here. I'm going to go ahead and select the theater here, or jewelry store. Let's I'm just going to turn them here so we can see them. There they are. There's a jewelry store. And let's get the bank. Or the theater. So we'll move the theater around. Boink, boink. There you go. Move him over. Just want to show the two different things here that we'll see. And I'll move him over a little too. So it'll spawn and you'll see both these things. So I've got two things in here, and if I was going to do project size, we'll go ahead and kind of do project size. It's not gonna show up a lot on project size because these are assets that I've loaded. Now let's change that. Let's do the memory calculation. Yeah, where is it? Anyway, so I've got those two in here, and so now I'm going to do is show how to hide these. Not hide them, but actually get them out of memory. And in order to do that, you have to use something called data layers. So if I look up here, we don't have any data layers. So you go into data layers here, and we need to create a new data layer. So, and a data layer is just a place to where you can group assets and then be able to control their visibility. So I'll create a new data layer, and I'll call this data layer DL theater, whatever, theater, right? All right, I got something called data layer theater. So now I need to add some assets to the data layer. There's a couple ways to add assets, but initially when you're getting started, probably the easiest way to do it is go into your outliner. Okay, select the theater, and then select everything in the theater. Select the theater, and then say, got them all selected, right? And then you go back to data layers, and you right click it, and you say, add selected actors to selected data layer. So I'm selected DL theater, and I added it. Boom, and it changes it to look a little bit different here. And then if I would go back in the outliner and look at anything, look at this one warehouse shelf and go to the bottom, the asset itself, and look in data layers, you can see that it is now attached to this data layer called theater. Okay, so now we're going to control it in the game. There's lots of ways to do this, but I'm going to show the simplest way. First of all, we're going to have to add a sequencer. So let's go find the devices, and I'll find cinematic. All right, so I need to add a cinematic sequencer to start with, and then I also need to add a little sequence. So if I go back up here, test data layers, I need to add in here a cinematic level sequence, and we'll call this one ls load theater. Load theater. And what we'll do with this, just for grins, is looking at the data layer here and looking at the details of the data layer, which are down here. You can decide its initial state. And I'm going to say its initial runtime state is on loaded. So when I fire this thing up and do a run, there will be, initially, there'll be no theater because it's set to take this data layer and onloaded. And there's three states: onloaded, loaded, and activated. And basically onloaded is it's not in memory at all. Loaded, it's in memory, but it's not visible. And activated is it's loaded and visible. So at this point, if I started the game now, in fact, maybe I should, I'm going to go ahead and launch this. So what'll happen is right now, since I said this data layer shouldn't show, the data layer will not show. So I'm going to launch a session. That says, oh, you want to save those? Yeah. I'm going to pause for a sec. All right, it's loaded. I'm in edit now. It's loaded the Fortnite stuff. So if I start the game and we look in it, you will see there's a jewelry store, but there is no theater. And it's not in memory too. If I check memory, it would not be in there. So now we're going to go back and make it so we can see it. So what we do with that is we get the level sequencer again, and I will here, and I have to add something. I have to add, and I add a data layer track, and then I have to right click that and say edit section and identify which data layer. And I only have one in here, but I could have multiple data layers. I say I want the data layer theater, and I want it to be activated, and its pre-roll state was onloaded. And you can click that, and so that should, when this is run, that should do that. Now you could go down here, make sure it's not looping, and also which it won't be by default, but you can make this as small as you want, because you only want it to, there's only one one frame is all you really need to run. If you're running this verse, you can just run that frame. Look at here, look at the cinematic device. This is the important part. When it says finish completion state override, say you want to force that. You want to force its keep state so it stays there. So how do you trigger this? Well, you can trigger this with a trigger. So let's go get a trigger. Device, we'll get a trigger and stick it in here. And get the cinematic sequencer and say, I said, here's the cinematic sequencer. I have to, first of all, let's do this. I need to put a sequencer, that sequence in there, in the cinematic sequencer. I've got to put the sequence I just created. But now I need some way to start playing in the game, because I don't want it to start on auto start. That's one way you can do it, but I don't want that because I want it to load when the trigger is there. So I pick the trigger and say when this is triggered, start playing this sequencer, which will on-hide or load, not on-hide, load it. It actually loads it. So if I push this, I will pause again here as it updates Fortnite. All right, let's test it. So again, if you start it, we go look at it. And we're over here. Where is it? There it is. Nothing there. So, but if I walk over here, this should step on the trigger. It should play the sequencer, which should load the data layer. And there it is. So that worked. Now, let's go real quick just to show So that could be a whole street, for example, in what we're trying to go do, not just in it could be as many assets as you wanted in the game. So if I go ahead and duplicate this, duplicate, oops, come on, sit down. I want the trigger, come on. So I'll move him out here. And also duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate the trigger, I'm going to duplicate the cinematic sequencer, and also I'm going to duplicate the level sequencer that tells it to load and unload. So I want to duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one onload theater, ls onload theater. I'm going to go in there, and instead of activate, I'm going to change this to properties. I want to onload it, and its pre-roll state was activated, so it's going to onload it. So I've got that set. Let me save it. I am going to go say, don't use in this, for this cinematic sequencer, I want you to use the onload, not the load. And I want that to be triggered by the second trigger here. I'd name the triggers different too. So you'd see them, you'd know what they were in the outliner. So let's see, I'm going to go pause again and see if that works. All right, let's see, it went ahead and got the new Fortnite client, so I will start it. Move it over here, and of course it'll start unloaded, remember? So we'll walk over here, run that first level sequencer, which will load it. The second one is going to call the level sequencer that should unload it. Oh, and it didn't work. This worked last time I did it, so I must have not set something quite right on this sequencer. Trigger 2. Oh, I didn't set this to say on triggered. So, again, I'll pause and let it go update it. Yeah, we'll try this again. It only took a second to update it, so it's just I forgot to set the, to listen to the triggered event. Let's go over there, and again, here I am. I will bring it into memory, take it out of memory. So that's how you use data layers, and again, the magic of the sequencer, because this is really hard to figure out, but because you can't use blueprints like you can in Unreal Engine to control data layers. So, but you can find the data layers, use it with the cinematic sequencer, and then triggers to go control all that stuff. So this will be great for us to manually control what's in memory or not to get around our memory problems.